All right, welcome to the Convention of States call tonight. We are doing an interview with Don Huffines, who is running for governor of the state of Texas. And tonight, I want to share with you first, before we begin, Convention of States is a movement. It is based on Article 5 of the Constitution. Article 5 of the Constitution tells us how the Constitution can be amended. And there are two parts. Part A says the Congress can do it, and that's been done now 27 times. And the states ratified those, and so they were amended then to the Constitution. And Part B says the states have that right as well to propose amendments, and they come together. So when we have 34 states that say they want to be a part of this convention, then Congress must call the convention. The 34 states or more could come together, propose the amendments, and then 38 states have to ratify it. And ratification means that whatever is proposed, so we have three general items that is put into the resolutions. One is impose fiscal restraints on the federal government. Another amendment is limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. And number 3 is term limits on Congress and federal officials. So when that convention comes together and those amendments under those general topics will be proposed, then those proposals will come back to the states to be ratified. And what that means is that those proposals will have to go through our state legislature, meaning it goes through the House and the Senate and then signed off by the governor for 38 states. So it's a tall bar. But that's our goal. Our mission, though, is to grow the largest grassroots army of self-governing citizens. And that mission is important because when those amendments do come back to the states to be ratified, we need an army at home to be able to they understand and know the process and know how to help push those proposals through our own legislature. So that is the Convention of States in a nutshell. And so self-governance, a part of that is interviewing and understanding and meeting our elected officials or the ones that are campaigning for those spots. So tonight we have Don Huffines, and so I'm going to hand it off first to Al Torres, who shares the state director leadership position with me, and to introduce us to Don Huffines.
Hi, good evening. Hey, thank you, Don, again for being with us this evening. Quick introduction. Don Huffines is a proud fifth-generation Texan, a husband, a father, and a grandfather, and a self-made businessman. Don fought fearlessly for fiscal restraint and government accountability in the Texas Senate while representing Dallas County District 16. During his 2 legislative sessions, Don earned a reputation for being one of Texas's most conservative lawmakers. And I want to thank you again for being with us tonight. Since I get the opportunity to start off with the first questions, what I'd like to ask you is something that relates to what we COS are very much concerned with. One of them is the overreach of the federal government. So my question to you, sir, if I could, if elected governor, how would you address what appears to be an increasing overreach by the present administration by continuing their assault on states' rights? For example, recently we were aware that the Department of Justice is investigating election integrity of the laws being passed by the several states to address that issue. How would you address that, sir?
Well, I'd like to lean on the first to address it by saying that, let me just say this, that the lens I look through is the Constitution I swear an allegiance to. And fundamentally, that means that I'm here to protect your God-given liberties. And that is, I think, the fundamental role of government, is to protect you from government. And that's why the Constitution was essentially written. Our founders knew that, and as I'm sure all of y'all know that. So that's the lens I look through. On pushback against the federal government, I will use the Constitution. For instance, my border plan, I'm just giving you examples. I'll answer your immediate question first. Let me just answer that. And as you know, there's 3 branches of the government, the executive branch, legislative branch, and the judicial. If we lose a lawsuit in Texas, I'm not really worried about lawsuits. The overarching umbrella theme of my campaign is about Texas sovereignty. And I'm going to prove to the country what it means to be sovereign. And I'm not just going to prove that to the rest of the country. I'm going to prove it to the world. We're frustrated. We're tired. We're scared as Republicans, and we're tired of being lied to. We're tired of all these broken and empty promises. And I'm just not worried about the federal government's lawsuits. I'm worried about Texans. As you know, the judicial branch of the government is supposed to interpret the law. Doesn't mean they have the authority to enforce the law. That's the executive branch's role. And I am the executive branch as the governor for state law. So it's one thing to lose a court case, it's another thing for the courts to enforce it. I will prove from the 10th Amendment and every other part of the Constitution what it means to be sovereign. On my border plan, for instance, I'm using Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, which was specifically written if a state's invaded, they have a right to defend themselves. Of course, I point out to the obvious examples. I'm not sure they would even gotten the document signed if they didn't have it in there. South Carolina would be invaded by the French and the federal government didn't come to their rescue. And of course, the state's got the authority to defend itself, solicit support from other states, charge a tariff and other things it needs. And that's what Texas is going to do when I'm governor. I'll get her done in about 60 days after inauguration. I'm going to engage the entire Texas military on this particular issue. You didn't ask about it, but I thought I'd just go ahead and tell you. And that's to secure the border. I'm never going to ask permission from the federal government to secure the border. This is our border. I'm going to use Article 1, Section 10 to do whatever we need to. I feel like that article gives a state the opportunity to enforce immigration law if it wants to, or to ignore immigration law. And we will be doing what we need to do to secure the 25 crossings over the river, for instance, to stop the commercial traffic from coming into Mexico, put the pressure on Mexico to secure their side of the river, and also to round up everybody that gets across. So that's an example of how I'm going to use the Constitution, and I'll use the same thing on election integrity.
Thank you. But actually, you answered what was going to be my follow-up question about the border integrity of our border. So you jumped the gun on me, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I thought it was a little better example. So sorry.
Well, it was my follow-up question. Thank you.
Oh, well,
Erika, over to you.
Yeah, so Al, I would like for you to ask the other question in regards to Afghanistan. As you as a veteran, that was a concern of yours the last time we did an interview. So if you could talk about our veterans. We have 250,000 supporters in the state of Texas. 19,000 of them are veterans. And so Al is our representative of our veterans, I guess you could say.
Great.
So Al, if you could, please.
Well, actually, we do have a veterans coalition director as well, but I do speak up on the issue quite a bit since I was involved in it. I stepped on the ground in Afghanistan and actually in Kandahar back in 2002 and did quite a bit out there. So I guess my question to you would be, sir, and I know this is not something that we as Texas or you as a potential governor would deal with directly, other than how we help our veterans here get past some of the issues, the anger that I know is rising from a lot of them. I get calls all the time from the Veterans Association. I started here in my neighborhood, asking how I'm doing and how they're feeling and all this other good stuff. So what would you say to the veterans in Texas about how everything was handled, the execution of withdrawing from there, if we would even should have done that in the first place, it was handled. But your thoughts and comments on how that would develop under your administration?
Well, as a governor, of course, there's not a lot I'm going to do on foreign policy. Where states are restricted from that. But from a state perspective, we just would, my role would be to help the veterans, of course. And Texas actually does a fair job of that. I was on the Veterans Committee in the Texas Senate. And a lot of veterans move to Texas because of the treatment they get here and the benefits they get. And we'll just would continue with that and listen to the veterans. If you're asking me what I would do if I was president, or I hopefully would never been in that situation of the mess that Biden's in. I mean, what a joke. I mean, it's a disaster, obviously. It's a huge embarrassment for the United States and a real setback to our foreign policy positions around the world. I do think that we're too lenient with deploying our military forces and without a clear mission. And they need to have a clear mission. It needs to be a winnable mission. That deployment over there wasn't very clear, and it wasn't very winnable. And obviously the Afghans preferred the Taliban over the Americans. And so it was too bad that we got involved really in that situation to begin with, once we knew that Osama bin Laden wasn't there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I lost the audio.
No, I'm back. I hit
Oh,
the
hear me?
button by accident. You got me now? Can you hear me now?
Hold on just a second. I've lost the audio.
Okay, we'll wait. No problem.
Hold on.
Because this thing's weird. Can you hear me now? You got the next one there.
Okay, now I got you. I'm back.
Good. All right, so I'll add the next question. So one of our priorities is banning taxpayer-funded lobbying. Number one, which lobbyist supports you, and how will you be handling banning taxpayer lobbying?
Well, first I'll say I don't think any lobbyists support me. I haven't found any yet. I did receive money from them when I was in the Senate, but not yet running for governor. And we've gotten a lot of donations. I've gotten hundreds of donations, but nothing that I know of. Honestly, I haven't seen them all from lobbyists. But this is something that's a priority of the Republican Party. Certainly something that's a priority for me. I can tell you a couple of quick stories where I was a victim of taxpayer-funded lobbying. As you probably remember, I uncovered one of the largest political corruption scandals in modern Texas history. And that was this obscure government agency in Dallas County that it's called Dallas County Schools. It taxed everybody in the county on a property tax, and 3,000 employees, $110 million annual budget. The more I dug into it, the more I realized they were stealing tens of millions of dollars. That's why it's one of the largest by how much money elected office holders could steal. I got the Rangers involved, and the FBI. We got 6 people put in prison. Of course, the sitting mayor pro tem of the city council of Dallas, serving 7 years. But there's a lot more people should go to jail, but that's beside the point. The point is that organization spent $1.3 million of stolen taxpayer money to beat my legislation in Austin, and they almost did it. And they are, this is a huge problem. I was a victim on another one. I wanted to have a forensic audit, one of the tollway authorities bill down in Austin. I got that out of the Senate, and the Central Texas Tollway Authority spent lots of money lobbying up to beat my bill to get them audited, which of course makes me very nervous because there's a lot of corruption in government, and a lot of people need to go to jail. So this is being a priority. I'd say to contrast that with our governor. And the only thing I want to point out to your team and your listeners is that everything in Austin is not what it seems. I was in the swamp for 4 years. It's every bit as deep and wide as Washington, and it's full of liars. And like you say, if you ever met a Republican that didn't say they were conservative, most of them, 90% of them are liars. My battle was always with the Republicans. I was cussed at, screamed at, and abused more in that building in the Texas Senate I've ever been in my adult life. And so when you see, I bring this up, and I've got a lot of stories. I don't want to bore you. They're all good stories, but I won't tell them, but unless you want me to. But the point is,
I think we do want to hear some. Yeah.
Okay, I've got some goodies. But the point is, like Burroughs, I think, was in charge of killing that bill this year in the House, right? That decision is made in advance of the session normally, and it's made by the governor and the governor's team. It's not the person in the committee chairman that's going to kill it. They make it way in advance and they say, who's going to volunteer to take the arrows on this session to kill these bills? And they say, okay, well, I think that's who it was. Okay, well, Burrows would, okay, we'll give him this committee. What does he want to do it? Okay, give him the committee, he'll kill it. That decision is made in advance, and it's usually what the governor's doing. So the governor is making the decisions to kill all of our good legislation. And so I just want to make that very clear. Whether it's the Democrats fleeing Austin or the election integrity bill, all of that, what we see down there, a lot of it is all for show, and we're all being hustled. So I'll leave it at that. So what I would do, that didn't answer your question. I'm sorry. What I'm going to do is use the tools in the toolbox to get it done. Here's the thing about this, why I'm running for governor, is you're not going to get anything done in Austin without a courageous governor. We're not going to secure the border. We're not going to get rid of property tax. We're not going to have election integrity. We're not going to have any of our legislative priorities done unless you've got a courageous governor that wants it to happen. You're not going to get to the 1-inch line. When the governor wanted something done, he could get it done, but he doesn't. So we don't get any of this done because the governor doesn't believe in it. The governor doesn't want it to happen. So it's not going to happen. Look, I get last call on every bill. Not one bill can come out of that chamber unless it's a constitutional amendment that I don't have last call on. I don't care if I veto 1,000 bills. I don't care how many bills I veto. And in that swamp and those club members, the only thing they really care about is their fellow in their club. This is what matters. It's being in this club, and how you move you up in the food chain in this club is getting a bill done. And that's everything to these guys and women, is getting a bill done, How do you get it signed? You get your bill out. And they ain't getting one bill done if I don't get my bills done. First thing they're going to do is our Republican legislative priorities. And we're going to get that done in the first 60, 90 days. I'll veto every one of their bills and call them back.
Yeah, and so CUS or Convention of States as a organization, we are bipartisan. So, but you can say whatever you want, of course. But I've often said that if each party has 8 priorities, why are they both not addressed? I mean, you can at least address both, and make them priorities to discuss, and then on from there. But anyways, I want to open it up to questions. Sam Martinez, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. My question is, just in looking at news around the country and around in other parts, it appears that a vaccine mandate is going to be coming under the pressure of that, and it's going to be by employers, but it's clear that the government in some ways is pushing these employers to mandate it. I want to know if you believe that also falls under many amendments, but under the 10th Amendment, which you specifically talked about earlier. And if so, would you also advocate for the Attorney General to coordinate with other Attorney Generals to fight against that? And what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely.
Sam, if you could also add your Senate district, the city kind of where you're at.
Yes, Senate District 31, Amarillo, Texas.
Oh, great. I love the panhandle. Hey, of course, I'm going to fight to have your back. I'm never going to let anyone forcibly give you a vaccine or require you to get a vaccine, where it's a business or the government. That's never going to happen. I'm not going to let them require you to wear a mask either. I mean, it's not going to happen. That's a medical decision between you and whoever you want to share it with. I was for vaccine choice for many years, but way before we had the COVID, the Wuhan virus. And so I visited with way too many people who have been negatively affected by vaccines. But if somebody wants to take the vaccine, that's great. Take 10. I don't care how many times you get stuck with it, but you're not going to force me. I'm not going to take it. And if somebody else doesn't want to take it, I've got your back. I'll use every tool in my toolbox. You can count on that to make sure I protect you.
Thank you. If you could take your hand down, Sam. Joanne, you're up. And if you could state your Senate district.
I put it in the, my name, but I am Senate District 25, Donna Campbell. And you really kind of already addressed a lot of my question, other than maybe what to do about it. Convention of States, along with the Texas RPT, had legislative priorities, and I'm sure Democrats had legislative priorities. I don't know what they were. With the majority in the House and the Senate, why was it like pulling teeth even to get it introduced? I mean, we had to fight to get it introduced and then fight to get it out of committee. We had so much opposition from what should have been our friends, and they've revealed themselves to not be. So my answer to this, and in every area, whether it's the Senate district or the House district, we need to look at primarying these people and getting them out. And I want to know your feelings on that. And I think you really kind of already said, if the governor doesn't want it to happen, he's going to find a way of killing it right up front. But anyway, thank you so much for that honesty. Oh my gosh, whoever says that, I love it. Thank you.
You ought to hear my other stories. That's not a story. That's just a fact. Look, we've been fighting this battle. I've been a delegate. I'm a Republican, and I'm running for the Republican nomination to be your governor. So I'm speaking from that perspective, of course. And I've been a delegate to many state conventions over 20 years, maybe 10 or more. I've been a delegate to the national conventions. We have a great platform. I have fought for our party platform for decades. And that was one reason I ran for the state Senate, was trying to get that into law. I took it to me to all the caucus meetings. When I was a national delegate, I sent it all the way up to Minnesota, 3,000 copies of it, to make sure every delegate in the nation had a copy of the Republican Party platform, because it's so perfect. I love it. But you know why we don't get this done in Austin, in that swamp? It's because they don't believe in it. We have too many rhinos in Austin that don't believe in it. They don't want it to be law. If they wanted it to be law, as you know, we control everything for 20 years. It would be law in 1 week, and it's every session. And our government starts with leadership with the governor. It starts with him. 15, 17, 19, 21. The only reason we got stuff done in 21 because the governor knows I'm after him. I've been going around the state. He knows I'm chasing him. I'm going to catch him, and I'm going to give him a retirement party, because my platform and what I want to have accomplished, besides the 3 things I'm focused on, is the Republican Party platform. I'm here for I've been on the grassroots side too long, and I'm here for the Republican Party. And I don't need a job. I'm only doing this because the job's not getting done. I mean, I'm a business guy, and I'm the only guy, as you know, that never took any money from the government, no pay, no pension, all that, no health care, no reimbursements, nothing. I'm going to do the same thing as governor. I'm not doing this for a new career.
You made a good point about the grassroots. So could you give the grassroots or Joe citizen advice? What can they do?
Well, I get that question a lot, and it does make a difference when we show up in the legislator's office. It does matter. If you show up a lot, it matters. If you show up in numbers, it matters more. I don't think phone calls really matter. I don't think emails really matter much, unless you're sending thousands of them. After that, it would matter. Tying their phone lines up matter. If you could get people to just really, hammer them on the phones, but on the computer, I don't think, it matters some, but not a lot. Look, governor, there's only 3 positions in the nation and in the state that's going to matter. That's governor, speaker, and lieutenant governor. In the nation, it's the same: speaker, president pro tem of the Senate, and the president. Those are the 3 people that decide everything. And, with some consulting, but basically those. And in Texas, I'm going to prove what it means to be governor. I'm going to be a governor you've never seen and you never have heard of. I'm going to show what it means to be a real courageous leader for the state of Texas. I'm going to be the tip of the spear for the nation. This is the most important election in the United States in 22. And it could be one of the most important elections in the history of our country, because the federal government's never going to secure that border. It's never going to happen. We had the trifecta in Washington when Trump was president, and he couldn't secure the border. It's only going to happen if a courageous governor. If Abbott wanted the border secure, he could have done it 7 years ago or 7 days ago. And I think he's got it just the way he wants it. And he's got the legislation just the way he wants it. And he doesn't believe in our party platform.
Thank you. So Jayme, you're up. If you could state your Senate district.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi, Jayme Burkhart, and super appreciate you being with us. I'm probably going to show my true colors here because I just love your uber conservative message and the fact that you are so honest and a straight shooter. And I think Erika stole my thunder a little bit, asking, what we can do. I'm a little concerned that even though you are speaking and going around the state, that enough people aren't hearing your message, that you're kind of going up to bat against if I'm not an activist and really paying attention, I'm a fan of Governor Abbott's. I talk to people all day long that think Governor Abbott hung the moon, and that he's super conservative and that he's just been great. And I one at a time I have to kind of educate people, but I guess I'm kind of wondering what your campaign is looking at and how we can better get the word out about what's really happening in Austin.
Well, that's a great question, and I appreciate that. Well, we're working very hard. I'm going all over the state, but let me just give you where the campaign is. When I announced on May the 12th, I had 18 people on payroll. We're up to about 40 people now, and we're going to staff it all the way up to hundreds of people. We'll be opening field offices. I mean, this is a real campaign. I'm not trying to send a message. I'm not trying to make a statement. I'm here to win, and I'm in it to win. From May the 11th to June 30th reporting period, we reported over $9 million raised. So we've got some resources. We have over $7.5 million in there, $7 million in the bank. I don't know what it is today. And I'm continuing on the fundraising trails, what you do as a candidate. And we're going to raise millions and millions of dollars. We're going to hit him head on. Look, we're never going to outraise him. That's all. He's never spending money. He's never had a primary opponent in 30 years of being in office. This is the definition of a career politician. He just can't get enough, unfortunately, because we don't have term limits. I'm the one that filed all the term limit bills every session. So he could be governor for another 50 years, but we're running a great campaign, I think. And I've got a great team I'm surrounding myself with. The longer the runway, the better. And so I think the primary is going to be postponed until April, from March 1st to probably April, maybe May. So that's better for us. And we've got a good path to victory. My biggest challenge, as you've already said, my biggest challenge is reaching the uninformed voter, the uninformed Republican. If Republicans are active in any type of group, I can get in front of them and I can do my speech and I tell my tale and I tell everything that's going on. And they understand that this is a failed administration. They understand that we've all been hustled in this deal. So that's the challenge. And we've accepted the challenge, and only fighters win fights.
We have in almost every district, we have monthly meetings going on ranging from, 7 people to 70 people. So can you tell us what size groups do you speak in front of?
Well, all that I can. I mean, today, it's just an example. I did a small group of influencers in Collin County for about 15. And then last night I was in Lamar County. I mean, just all sizes. And I don't want to give you all the details, but I go all over. Saturday was 400 or 500 in Houston. So, and I do as much earned media as we can generate. We've got our own in-house studio. I've got a 7,000 So we're
Good.
any group you got, I'll be happy to visit with. I'll be happy to come down live in person and if we can get it in the schedule, because it's really filling up.
Awesome. Okay. Edna, you are up.
Okay. Thank you,
Your
Mr.
Senate
Huffines,
district.
for being on. I'm from Odessa, which is part of Senate District 31, Kel Seliger, and he's going to get challenged this race also, so I'm kind of glad. Anyway, I have a couple questions. The first one that's on my mind is about audit of elections. There's been so much problems with the elections in the last year or two, couple of years, and there's a push to do audits, especially of national and state elections. How do you feel about it, and what would you do about that? And then the other question has to deal with foreign entities that are buying land in Texas. An example of the businessman from China that has bought land near the Air Force Base here in Texas that has built a large landing field, and like, why do you need that, you know? So I would like to get your intake on that. And then how do we get a hold of you? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And excuse me just a second. James, can you get her name? What was your name again, please?
Edna.
Edna?
Edna Kruger. Think of Kruger like Freddie.
Okay. Well, I'll call you, Edna, or you could email the campaign. But to answer your, let's see, the first question, tell me the first question again.
The first question was, how do you feel about election audits?
Yeah, that's right.
Especially for like state and national, and
Look,
what you would do with that?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I've called for a forensic audit of the 20 election, comprehensive forensic third-party audit for most of the counties in Texas, all the large counties. I was calling for a forensic audit in 18 because the information was presented to me. I lost my election in 18 in Dallas County. I'm all Dallas County. We know people's cheating elections. There ain't any question about that. So I've been on this issue for a long time, and I've got this one of the three platform issues I'm running on I'm running on the border, phasing out property taxes entirely, securing our border, and also having election integrity. If we don't have confidence in our election, we're in a lot of trouble. This is the foundation of our constitutional republic, period. And civil wars is the number one cause of civil wars, is when people lose confidence in their elections. And when you break that foundation, it's going to get really ugly. And the Democrats always push back and they say, hey, this is voter suppression. Voter suppression is when 1 million Texans think their votes aren't being counted correctly because they don't know what's the point of voting. So I'll just go fast on this. It's all about enforcement. We've got a lot of laws. They just passed this new bill down there, and which is great. There's a lot of good things in there, but we've got to enforce the law, and we don't have enforcement. You can pass, it's already a felony to cheat. Look, Republicans cheat, Democrats cheat. People have always cheated in elections since there's ever been an election. So I'm going to have a new division. It's called Government Corruption Election Integrity Division. I'm planning on putting about 500 officers in there. Their only focus is government corruption. They're not going to do drugs or anything else. Government corruption, election integrity. They're going to stand in between the two parties. They're going to follow the ballots. They'll be fully trained in election fraud and voter fraud. They'll be in the central counting booths where they're in offices where they count the votes. They'll be familiar with software. Who owns the software? How can the software be manipulated? Who owns the machines? And who's really licensed to fix the machines? Where are the machines stored? All the issues that we can be cheated on to get people confidence. We have to have confidence. And the most important thing I'm going to do is have a separate court system. I'm going to move venue out of these counties where you can't get prosecuted for it, because in Dallas County, the judges are Democrats. They're elected. The DA is a Democrat. He's elected. The juries are Democrat. I mean, really, we're not going to get any justice in these counties. So I'm having a separate court system, a separate prosecution system for the new division. And it's going to be we'll change venue. And we're going to have confidence in our elections. I'm completely focused on it. And I want forensic audits all the time.
Yeah, that's something I really, I think all of us are very concerned about, and the election integrity bill is a good start. The other question was about how foreign entities are buying into Texas land, and is there anything that we can do about that with people that are buying our land and building big airstrips and such near Air Force bases? Why would they do that? I mean,
I don't know why they're doing that. I found that very puzzling myself. But this is a difficult situation to pass laws to stop. I'm just going to be, I just tell you like it is. I'm not here to sugarcoat it. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm just telling you that to create legislation and pass it to stop foreign nationals from buying land or property in Texas is a difficult lift. First, if you make it to one group like Chinese, for instance, there's too many ways they can hide behind straw men. You can create a corporation in Delaware. You can create a corporation in Las Vegas. We would never know who the stockholders are. We never know who anyone is. And you wouldn't know if they're part of the Communist Party. Of course, I'm against the communists and the Chinese buying our real estate in Texas. I'm just letting you know that that we can pass a law. We can do that, but it's very difficult to come up with, who we're really talking about. I mean, even if we pass it to stop the Chinese, well, they just get a straw man, American to buy it from them, because there's a lot of national Chinese that are dual citizens. I mean, it's not as easy as it sounds, or as one might think, unfortunately.
yeah, it'd be nice to be able to have some kind of rules in place that if they do buy the land, they have to follow within those rules to not make something that might be a security risk to our state and to our country.
Well, I agree. That'd be good.
All
I'm
right,
gonna give you the link real quick. You go to my website, donhuffines.com, and you click the link to chat with me, and you fill out a form. And I would love to come to Odessa to talk to
Okay.
your group. I really will. I'm actually going to be in Midland on the 22nd, I believe, or the 25th, 25th. So anyway, I don't know when but I'll come out there anytime.
yeah, I'll talk to the people.
Yeah, no, just set me up on the schedule if you can.
Okay, thank you so much. And Deborah, it's your turn. You're up. Edna, if you could put your hand down. You're still on mute, Deborah.
Well, I got one thing right. I put my video on. So, so Mr. Huffines, thank you for being with us. I met you last Thursday, or was it Friday, at the Patriots, trying to elect Patriots for your candidates.
In Austin.
So, yes. So I'm in Senate District 5, Charles Schwartner. So you had shared a story in the Senate that floored me, but unfortunately didn't really surprise me. It shocked me that when you were elected, that you were invited into the room, and then you're basically, now you've made it to the elite club. That is extremely disheartening to hear that. And so part of this, when I heard that, and we have a lot of officials or legislators that are there, and they are making laws that are not constitutional. They are against our Texas Constitution, and they are against our national Constitution. How would you hold these people to be accountable to follow the Constitution? And how can we test them and make sure they understand the Constitution that they were elected to protect?
Well, I have last call, like I said, on every bill that comes out of that building as governor. And I can veto any bill that comes out except a constitutional amendment. And if it's against the Constitution, it's going in the trash can. That's how I just tear it up and throw it away. And I'll try to alert them in advance so they don't waste their time. But I mean, I've got last call on everything. I've got last call on the budget. I got line item veto power in that budget. And believe me, those yahoos down there always have a pet project they want to stick in that budget. So I've got a lot of tools in the toolbox I can use to make sure they're operating the way they're supposed to, and we get our legislation done. We get, what we want done. So, I'll be overseeing all that.
Do you feel that you would be able to somehow change the environment in our legislation? Both in the House and the Senate. Do you think you can?
Yes. Here's the thing to keep in mind: the environment that we're operating in right now is a Greg Abbott environment. It's an environment of a rhino that doesn't want our Republican Party platform in law, our conservative legislation into law. And so what happens down there is that people lean into the influence. They want to be part of the cool club of the influencer, and that's Abbott. So he's a moderate rhino. He's a political windsock. So they're always leaning towards him. They know they don't need to be conservative. They can govern. They always campaign one way and govern a different way, of course, but most of them, not all of them. But so under my administration, the whole paradigm shifts in Austin. It shifts to being a real Republican. I'm the actual Republican, the first actual Republican that will ever be governor of the state of Texas. I'm the first business guy since 1978 when Bill Clements won, the first Republican governor since Reconstruction. But he wasn't really a Republican. He was a Democrat. Perry was a Democrat. Most of the Republican Party was filled. The slots were filled by Democrats, party switchers. So they're all going to, bottom line is they're going to lean. I will pull the whole chamber my way, and they want to have influence. They want to get their bills done. It's going to be under the spotlight of a Huffines administration, which is completely different.
Thank you. I have one last question. First of all, I would like to call you the constitutional conservative, and then you can take on the Republican. You're constitutional conservative Republican.
I'll call myself.
My last question would be, you had touched on this on Friday here in Austin when somebody had asked about school choice. And with that, I heard someone say, yes, we do have school choice, and it's for those who can afford it. So people who cannot afford it do not have a choice but to send their kids to these indoctrination places. And I liked your spin that you had mentioned, you kind of have to call it something different, like education freedom or something like that. And when I had asked other legislatures, why can't we get this passed? It kind of had this whole mentality of like, well, it's never going to pass. It's all tied to money. And it just was not important for them to continue to drive that home. That is something I think is extremely critical in these days. To be able to have a choice, because us being the patriots and the constitutional conservatives, and faith people, we don't want our kids to be taught that, and we are being forced to send them because we can't afford to send them to a place that's going to teach our values and morals.
Yes, here's what happens on that is, I filed most of the education freedom bills or parental choice bills in the Senate in 15 and 17 in the 84th and 85th session. I'm a champion of that issue. They are worried about their reelection. They only believe in it when they need to believe in it. They're not going to bring it up if they think it's going to hurt their campaign, and they just won't. And so, look, I'm a champion of it. It's competition. I'm a business guy. I'm really into the free market. I love the free market. And if competition always lowers the prices, increases the quality of everything. And it's certainly going to do that for our government schools. There's a government monopoly, and we're going to need competition in it. And the competition will make all of the government schools better. And they are scared of it. I have fought this on debate stages with the Democrats up here in Dallas County superintendents, and I'll continue to debate them and fight them every day I need to, because they are wrong and they're scared. They're scared of losing students for the ESA, my ESA bill.
Yes.
savings account bill. They're scared. I said, look, if you're delivering a service for that child and that parent, they're not going to leave because all their kids are going to the school anyway. I mean, their friends, excuse me, in their neighborhood. It's going to be a dramatic situation where they want to leave. I said, if you're delivering what that customer wants, they'll stay in that chair. And this is mainly benefits, of course, students with disabilities, parents that are frustrated, and, you know, rich people, like I said, they can always get a new zip code and go to a private school or move. And so this is fundamental to our education freedom is fundamental to who we are.
Okay, and just a yes or no thing, and then I'm finished. Is that something that you think you could get something passed during your term?
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. I think it's possible. It might take 2 terms, but
Okay.
I tend to use the budget on this issue and use it heavy. And that's going to be my hammer on this issue.
Okay, thank you.
I think I can
Thank
get
you.
it done. I'll try, but I got a pretty full agenda. I really want
Mhm.
that border secure, and I really want to get rid of property tax. So,
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. So Tim, you're up. Please state your Senate district.
Yeah, Tim Cox here, Senate District 12. I appreciate you being here, Mr. Huffines, and I certainly appreciate your stance on election integrity. I was at a committee hearing for over 36 hours, heard the AG, one of the AG or somebody from the AG office come up and talk about how they used to have just one person, going after election integrity, and now it's expanded to 5. So when you're talking 500, holy cow. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I'm gonna just throw out 2 quick, ask you about your stances on two items, and then I'll mute. So the Second Amendment, and then on energy, green versus petrol versus geothermal, wherever you want to go with that.
of course, well, of course, I'm a big pro gun Second Amendment. And I'm the first person in the Senate to file constitutional carry in 2015. It was a priority of the Republican Party, and it's a priority of mine. And I explained it to the other senators as that story that she was talking about, and I was in a caucus meeting, but I won't go through the story. But I explained to all the senators that the 2A is not about hunting or shooting a burglar. Those are good uses of it. It's about stopping tyranny. This is the backstop against tyranny and tyrannical governments. That's why we need it. And now government has taken away our natural rights. Our liberties come from God and not the government. And this is our natural right to be able to have a weapon to defend us from tyrannical governments. Anyway, so I'm a champion of the Second Amendment. I'm a champion of constitutional carry, permitless carry. And you wouldn't believe that was what most of the rhinos got upset more than anything. Dan Patrick hated it. He hated the bill. He couldn't stand it. I was cussed at and screamed at because I was going to put it on an amendment on other bills. And they just freaked out about it because they didn't want to vote on it. They don't want to be accountable. They work so hard not to be accountable. So here's where it's interesting. It's not the votes we take that we get ranked on the votes we take or who's conservative and all. It's the votes that we don't take that we should be ranked on, because they will hide all the time not to be accountable. So I'm a big champion of that. I'm sorry, your second question. What was the second? I'm sorry.
The second question was on energy.
Yeah, of course.
Perry really took us down this green energy path a long time ago. It's gotten bigger and bigger, and we had our winter event. So
look, it's a disaster. The green energy has been a disaster for Texas under Abbott's watch. His 3 PUC people, he didn't pay any attention to our grid. As you know, ERCOT collapsed. Well, not ERCOT, but the grid was 4 minutes away from a complete meltdown, and we'd be in the Stone Age for 60, 90 days, and thousands of people would have died. As it was, hundreds died. Look, it was all about the subsidies. We tried to get rid of the subsidies when I was there. A lot of people did. We all worked on it. They did get that done this year on the 312 agreement for the school tax. But this is an ecological disaster. If you've seen out in West Texas and all over the state now, these windmills, I mean, you can't recycle the windmill blades. They're made of fiberglass. They're stacking up everywhere. It's devaluing every ranch And if you've got a ranch next to one of these wind farms, which is about every place in West Texas now, your property appraisals are going down 30% because nobody wants to sit there and look at a 200-foot tower spinning 100-foot blades. And they're not generating, of course, when the wind blows. And so we got to get rid of all the subsidies. My plan is to make sure that we have complete confidence in our grid, that we have a robust grid like we used to have. We have an independent grid. It's the ERCOT system, not the FERC system, federal system. I worked on that when I was there. And we got to quit selling, cross-pollinating with the FERC system. And I want to make sure that the renewables are responsible for electricity into the system when the wind's not blowing, and they got to buy it or generate it some other way. So we have reliable juice 24/7.
Thank you so much. So I have one more question, then I'm going to hand it over to Darren. He's going to have his question. And then if you want to, then just tell us, all of your connection points, where to find you and where to watch whatever that you have on social media. So my question is, Convention of States, of course, do you support it? And then number 2, we have a sunset clause coming up. Would you support removing that sunset clause?
Yes and yes. I voted for it when I was in the Senate, and I do support it. Term limits is a big issue to me, especially I filed term limit bills both sessions I was there. I filed like 3 or 4, every way I could think of it to try to get them to give me a hearing. They wouldn't do it. I even exempted them from it. So, but I'm a champion of term limits from the governor to the dog catcher. And of course, restraining spending is huge. So there are issues that I'm a little concerned with. I want to make sure that we don't, when we have the Constitutional Convention, that we keep the issues narrow to the 3 charges that the legislature's passed. So that would be the biggest concern, of course.
I just want to correct you real quick. It's not a constitutional convention. It's a convention of states.
Sorry, you're right.
Yeah, I'm just saying our opposition thinks that we're for a constitutional convention, which is a con. That's not what we're about. But that mistake happens all the time. Darren, you're up. If you could please state your Senate district.
So I live in Senate District 2 and just south of Bonham, Texas. So kind of in the rural part of the state. And thank you, Erika, for asking that question because no one had broached that subject, and that was the first one on my list. So
I was going to bring it up if y'all forgot.
So you haven't talked a bit about your property tax proposals and kind of the way that would work. So if you would just kind of educate me a bit on how that would work as a novice. And from a practical standpoint, everyday standpoint. And then I may have a follow-up depending on how that answer goes. So
sure. Okay. I'll try to make it pithy. And this is a very doable. It's been a priority on and off of the Republican Party's currently in our platform. Property tax is a bad tax. It really is. I know Texans are tired of renting their homes from the government. The rent just goes up and up. And I like to point this out to everyone is that you never own your own real estate. You never own it. You just rent it from the government, your ranch, your farm, your lot, your land, your home, your building, your commercial buildings, office buildings, apartments, everything, none of that, because the government has a first lien on it and all you do is rent it. And you don't have much say in what the rent's going to be, but I can tell you it almost always goes up. This is fundamental to our liberty. It's life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. I mean, it's not just the money we're going to save, which is almost unmeasurable. We think getting rid of property tax is going to create $100 billion in net worth to Texans almost overnight. It's just phenomenal. I mean, just imagine what you could do with that money. I mean, you could go to private school, you could go on vacation, you could buy a bigger home, you could donate it to charity. It's off the charts of how much money we're talking about. And the way to do this is not to spend all the money the state gets. So our revenues grow at about 7 to 8% a year average. That's state revenues, all the revenue buckets, whether it's hotel tax and oil and gas tax, sales tax, and We got other revenue buckets, franchise margin tax. But so what if you limit state spending, you can use that revenue growth to buy down property tax. So my initial proposal, and I've been working on it for a long time with a lot of smart people, is to cap the growth in state spending at 2%. And then we take the difference for what our revenues grow, which is about $7 billion a year, and we buy down property tax with it. Our total property tax numbers are 70 billion for all the political subdivisions of the state. This is really just a math problem. Right now, we think we can do it in 8 years. It was 10, but with revenues in the state increasing like they are, we think we can do it in 8 years. And then I'm going to move some of the property tax revenue bucket over into sales tax. Sales tax will increase and property tax will go away. This will be but sales tax is never going to get astronomical or out of control, but it does go up to speed up the process. And we'll have a constitutional amendment is the plan to make sure you get to vote on it so that when we cut the head off the snake, it'll stay dead. And also I want every Texan to weigh in on this. This is for everybody. And I want them to vote on it. And this is very doable, very achievable. We're never going to have an income tax because we already have a constitutional amendment against it. There are other proposals out there that with a VAT tax, for instance, a value added tax, and that would get rid of all the sales tax and the property tax. So there are a lot of paths to get here, but the main thing is we got to get rid of this tax. And we can do that. So then the state sends all the money back down to the cities, counties, and school districts, et cetera. And the state's on the hook for their revenue for that amount. And we don't change the funding formulas for the school districts. It's all set by the legislature. So they get all the same money they're currently getting. Now, 1 penny would change unless the legislature decided to change the funding formulas. So instead of the school districts being dependent solely on property tax and complaining to the state not paying their share, state's going to pay 100% of it. And the state and the school districts can rely on a lot of revenue sources the state of Texas has. We're already on the hook for all their debt. So all the paper they sell, we're already guaranteeing that. So that's not a big issue. And so school districts is easy, a little more complicated on some of the other ones, but we can get this done. And you got to have one thing to make this happen, though. And to make everything happen in this state that we're going to make happen. Because our greatest days are coming. And that is, you got to have a governor that's going to champion getting rid of it, or closing the border, getting control of these situations, solving these problems for Texas. You got to have a courageous governor who's willing to do it. Without that, we ain't getting to the 1-inch line.
Thank you so much for your time. If you could just, tell everybody how they can contact you, and we'll end it.
Okay, great. Well, of course, you can go to my website, donhuffines.com, and I'm all over social media. If you can't find me, let me know because we're in trouble. But I did get a new, anyway, we're all over social media, and you can text me at 79005. Text Don at 79005. So you write 79005, and under subject, you write Don, and then we'll be in our text bucket, and we don't abuse it. And you'll get all the updates on what's happening with the campaign. I will want to close with this. I'm going to take Texas sovereignty to a level no one's ever seen. I'm going to prove, like I said earlier, what it means for a state to be sovereign. I'm not asking permission from the federal government. I'm going to use the Constitution as it was originally intended to be used. And this is a new day for Texas. It's going to be a complete new chapter of Texas history in my administration. Our paradigm of the past and the present does not dictate our future. And our Huffines administration is going to be very different and very special for the state. And I just reemphasize again that our greatest days are coming. And I need your help.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.